When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello YouTube, welcome back to the Grease Goblin YouTube channel, and today's video is not a reaction, as you guys might have seen by the thumbnail, and I guess by just clicking on the video and looking at the title. So again, very beginning of this is just going to be telling why that's not that, but I'm just going to go ahead and say I had recorded about an hour and 15 minutes worth of basically reactionary content to Preston Jacobs for the next 2 weeks. I went to edit it as about the night before you guys are seeing this video, and the audio from the video just didn't come through, and I don't really think re-recording it is a good idea because the footage just is not going to be as good as it was the first time. And for me, it's just not going to be fun. I'm going to be retracting the same thing. So if you guys want me to do a video where I just basically summarize my thoughts from his part 4 and part 5, let me know. This is kind of a last minute video that I just kind of thought of from stream and also this week's content. But as you guys saw by the title and the thumbnail, we're going to be talking about Mirri Mesdur. I know I've done this video in the past, but I wanted to do an updated version. I think there's a lot of interesting arguments towards this, and it really sprung up when I did my video Thursday talking about revenge. And I mentioned in there that Mirri Mesdur gets her revenge by killing Rhaego and or Drogo. Now, in my head, I was more referencing the show, because in the show it's much more like, yeah, this was just straight up revenge. In the book, it's left a little bit less cut and dry. There are many questions we have. How far did Mirri go? Was she poisoning Drogo? Did she intentionally kill Rhaego? What does she do? And that in this video, we are going to go through all of that, her motivations. Did she do it, and come to a conclusion by the end of it? But before we get into the video, if you guys like to like, subscribe, and comment, please do. It helps the channel grow, which people might like this content as well. And let's get into it. So Mirri is this character that is a Larzarian, I hope I said that right, God's wife and Magi, or Magi. Again, struggling on pronunciation of it, but you know, you guys get the point. And she is this person that watches all of the people she knows and loves die or enslaved by the Khalasar, or Drogo's people. And when you think about it, if you also look at the way that her people are treated, it's this definite class/racism towards her people, where the Khalasar feel like they are basically a superior race to her people. And when you examine all of these things, and we even get to after the fact, when Dany talks to her after all this stuff has occurred, she kind of is at this point where she doesn't really have anything left to live for. Everything has been taken from her. So again, she has all of the motivation to intentionally kill Drogo and Rhaego, but did she? So let's look at the evidence about why she maybe did or why she didn't. So we know that Mirri gives Drogo this poultice, I think is how you say the word, but this idea to basically heal and close the wound because Drogo had gotten a wound. And upon further rereading through the chapter on which this all happens, Mirri did, it would appear, unless we're missing some evidence here, that she gave him the proper medical attention that we would have seen somewhere, say, like in the West with the maesters. She tries to heat and warm it, she tries to close the wound, and she tries to clean it, albeit maybe not with the safest things to clean it. But she, by all means, does take the right approach, it would appear, unless she puts some poison in there. But again, the hard part is about this is because I go back and forth on this, but Mirri was being watched while she was cleaning Drogo. Maybe they wouldn't have known if she was actually poisoning Drogo, but it does seem a bit odd, and it would be hard for her to really do that. Now, again, Mirri had nothing to lose at this point, so she still could have tried it. Again, that is still clear. But we know that Mirri gives Drogo some advice. Don't take it off, right? So do not basically take off what is keeping your wound together from it getting infection. That's the big worry, is that if it gets infected, you could die. That was kind of the big thing, and that's something that happened all the time back in when proper medical care was not a thing, when there was no like stitching or putting your wounds back together, closing your wounds. And she tells him to not basically drink alcohol, which I think is kind of like an equivalent to like milk of the poppy type thing. And we know, if we're going to compare it to real life, that alcohol consumption actually slows healing of your wound. So that would be a big reason why she would not want to do that. And then 2, you just don't want to take off this thing because it leaves you open to an infection. So one thing that you could take from this is that Mirri knew that Khal Drogo was not going to abide by this. Khal Drogo is this man who is more or less a brute. He is someone that probably does not believe in her medical care. Thinks she's a witch like the rest of the Dothraki. And when this starts to irritate him, he was just bound to take it off. I think that was what was in Mirri's head. I think she did give good medical advice, but I think in the back of her head, she also knew what was probably going to happen with Drogo. Now, that does not mean Drogo was murdered by Mirri. And this is where I'm going to have a change, because in my live stream I did tonight, and we were talking about it, I mentioned that I thought Mirri poisoned Drogo. I'm not so sure now, because I think it's one of those things where Mirri realized this guy's an idiot, and he's going to get himself killed, which is exactly what happens. Drogo then dies. He puts like this mud in it, and if you guys don't know, mud is extremely dirty. It would be very easy to get an infection when you're putting mud in it to close your wound. It seems like they go for a very like off the counter type of method where Mirri is very professional, it would appear, in the 2 methods. So I think it very much comes down to, when you really study the evidence, it more points to the idea that Drogo killed himself, and that Mirri just didn't really stop it when she knew it was going to happen. Which again is not her fault. Drogo dug his own grave, basically. So at this point, we get to the idea that Drogo is dying. And at this juncture, there is this idea that Mirri could do some blood magic and keep Drogo alive, because that's what Dany wants. And the end point of this, because I think the idea was always to make Drogo a vegetable, more or less. I don't think Mirri ever had any idea of bringing Drogo back to his full health. Now, the biggest question we have to ask here is, was Mirri using the life of Dany's child to bring Drogo back? Or was it more like she was using the horse, and that when Dany enters the tent, she now becomes part of the ritual? And this would fit really nicely into the idea of Mirri tells people to do things, and they don't do it. And then that occurs, and that gives them harm. Because after it, right, when we see what Mirri says, let's read off a quote from Mirri. Mirri Maz Duur to Daenerys Targaryen says, "The stallion who mounts the world will burn no cities now. His Khalasar shall trample no nations into dust." And another thing that Mirri suggests is the idea of, now you know kind of what life means when there's nothing to live for. And that's an interesting quote, because Mirri kind of has felt like this the entire time. So by Daenerys now not having her child has been killed, more or less. Was Daenerys' child already dead? Was it going to be a stillborn? We know that Daenerys' presumed mother, Rhaella, had trouble birthing children, was just something Daenerys struggles with. Now, Mirri obviously claims credit for killing Rhaego, because again, she's already in this position where she's tricked Daenerys anyway, right? Even if Rhaego hadn't died, she would still be in a bad spot because she didn't fulfill her end of the bargain. So, of course, she should just basically claim that, yeah, I killed Rhaego as well. And the idea here is that I don't really think Mirri probably wanted to do that. I think this was more like an accident kill, and more than it was intentional, like this big setup of Mirri to get Rhaego and Drogo killed. I think it was people being stupid and not listening to directions that get people killed, like Drogo. Daenerys, I mean, it's a tough situation Daenerys is in, because she's basically feeling like she's about to give birth, and she just gets basically taken into the tent. It really wasn't up to her, and that costs her her child. Now, you guys might differ on that. Do you guys differ on the idea that Rhaego was intentionally killed? I don't know. It's a tough idea, right? Because when we see that Drogo is given life, it doesn't seem like it really works. So is that the horse's sacrifice? And then we see later on that, well, her child is also sacrificed. We've seen this idea of kingly blood being a thing, which isn't really true. We see multiple times with like Mel that she burns people that don't have king's blood, but it also apparently gives power. Again, a blood sacrifice then, more or less, helps bring the dragons about. So, with all of this said, I think Mirri was more of someone that took advantage of the situation. She took credit for things that weren't necessarily her doing, but they followed her agenda, and she was okay with that. Because when you get to the point where Dany is talking with Mirri after Rhaego has died, Drogo is just, he's not functioning, what does Mirri have left to lose? She's going to die regardless, right? Dany's not going to let her live, so why not just claim that you also killed Rhaego? Because again, Mirri doesn't want the Dothraki to conquer all of these places like what happened with her people, her village. And I think that makes a lot of sense into her decision making. So let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that Mirri killed Drogo and also killed Rhaego or not? Thank you guys for bearing with me on this. This is kind of a last minute upload. I hope you guys enjoyed it all the same. I see you guys all in the next video. Bye, guys.